Basically, this is just going to be a crash course in land. And what I'm going to try to do, Andrew, is try to paint the systematicity of land where it's not like that's what I want. I want all of this shit to click together and everybody starts to see this overarching, because he's actually a really systematic, coherent thinker. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do shit with the occult and it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying about no, it all interconnects. And so, but the people who do all the Nick Land memes, they can't begin to convey the systematic aspect of what he's doing. And so, yeah, this is where it's like, this is not some line by line detailed study of him. It's more of going, look, all of us who are into theory, we all know that this guy is a kind of online philosophy legend, right? What the fuck is he actually about? What is all this shit with capitalism and artificial intelligence and the occult and Bitcoin and the dark enlightenment and what he does on Twitter? And like, how does it all click together? So basically that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try to provide a cognitive mapping of all of the main ingredients of Land's philosophical, what's on the menu, basically. So it's just it's so much. Here's the thing, like, I don't even agree with half this stuff. Look, here's why I think he's worth it. I do agree that what he thinks capitalism is building itself into is worth taking seriously. And I think there's ways to unite people around this type of image of capital, maybe even more so than like a classic Marxist critique of capital. So, I view Land as like my ultimate philosophical enemy, and yet like a kind of weird ally in a weird way. Here's the thing. I view Land almost like how Slavoj views Ayn Rand. Like, and I'm already thinking, right? Like Rand land, like I'm going to play with that somewhere. But because Slavoj views Ayn Rand in a positive way, because he's like, look, she went total mask off with what capitalism actually is. And it's just completely, the virtue of selfishness, the rich entrepreneur walks all over everybody else, like, and she glorifies it, and he's like going, my God, like you gave us capitalism without its ideological mask. I feel like Land does that in an updated way, and that's why I appreciate him in this regard. Look, and as far as D&G, I mean, Land helps to, because first and foremost, he is a Deleuzo-Guattarian. Now, Mark Fisher and those guys are going to argue over the way he interprets deterritorialization and reterritorialization. That's going to be this focal point in their critique of Land. But I guess the thing to say, look, and part of it is I wrote my whole section on my critique of D&G prior to my deep dive into Land. And so I've already told myself, like, dude, you can't go back now and try to add in this Land shit. This thing will never fucking get done. So what I've got to do is I got to release this as is, and then whenever I want to add in like a Land thing, then I'll basically write a supplemental post to it or something. But look, here's the difference, Andrew, is that Lacan and Žižek and Zupancic and Freud, here's something they would all say. They would say that human beings are desirers. We are the ones with desires. We are the ones with fantasies. We are the ones with drives. Okay? Animals don't have them. I know, Dave, you make your little joke about the fly, but okay, like in the strict sense. The point of psychoanalysis is that we're unique precisely because we have all of these libidinal dynamics going on. By that I mean desire, drive, fantasy, jouissance, pleasure principle, ego, all of that kind of stuff, right? What makes D&G and Land different, and especially Land's just piggybacking off of D&G here. D&G, what they call desiring production, yes, we have desiring production working through us, but it is like a cosmic principle. It far exceeds human beings. And so psychoanalysis is going to limit desire, drive, all that to us, which is primarily its neurotic form. D&G are going to say, yeah, that thing that you guys are calling like desire in its neurotic form, that's like a glitching up of this cosmic type of desire that's operative within nature, etc. So when you think desiring production, you got to think more of like a Schopenhauerian will to life or a Nietzschean will to power. It's something at work in being or in reality or in nature. It's not dependent just on us. Now, the way to think about it, little images that are helpful here. If desiring production is basically like an ocean, like use this, just go with this image. If desiring production is the ocean, then human beings are a specific wave within that ocean. Or you imagine like a big snowy field, right? If desiring production is the snowy field, then the snowman we make out of the snow would be us. But the point is, desiring production is far vaster than us, right? And so what D&G think is that this natural, you're going to hear me talk about it time and time again. This is the first chapter of the process. The process for them is desiring production, which is the machinic unconscious. What is the machinic unconscious? It is this thing that desiring production does. It's the machinic infrastructure of it, which is to say it's constantly connecting things in new ways. Parts of things connect to other parts, and this would go all the way down to like how chemicals combine and form chemical compounds and all of it. It's an actual ontology that gets at the production of the new, right? So obviously Lacan ain't interested in this. Now, Slavoj would be more, but here's the difference. He's not going to go with this radically positivistic affirmative ontology of machinic connection. He's going to see contradiction and negativity all the way down. And this gets at the heart of the matter, right? Is that D&G just have a fundamentally different ontology of how the new emerges. They believe the new emerges through new positive connections being made between already existing positive things. And Hegel would say, no, the new emerges through tearing with the negative, through dialectical struggle, through inversion, etc. And that's the difference. But what I just said to you is like a summary version of what I'm going to be doing in the very first lecture in the course. So the very first lecture has to be all the background context. I cannot begin to talk about land without giving everybody the background, primarily D&G, but we got to talk about Bataille. We got to talk about Kant. We've got to talk about Norbert Wiener, who is the guy who made cybernetics. We got to talk about Kurzweil and the other theorists of artificial intelligence. Like, there's all this stuff to get in mind before we go pivot in the following week to just talking about land and doing basically a whole lecture devoted to land's mature thinking. But yeah, I mean, basically this is the first time I'm ever going to be lecturing on D&G. And I mean, you talk about courses in the future. I mean, I want to teach anti-Oedipus. I really do. And I mean, for me at this point, it would like anti-Oedipus will have to be after I get my books done, because I would really want to sharpen up my understanding of it. But for me, I think I prefer anti-Oedipus to 1,000 Plateaus. I know that's a minority view at this point, because everybody thinks 1,000 Plateaus is better. I actually think anti-Oedipus is the better book. For example, like in 1,000 Plateaus, they changed their concept of fascism. They come to think that fascism is associated with capitalism, whereas in anti-Oedipus, capitalism is what would be undermining fascism. Like, I agree with it. Land wrote a whole thing about this, where he totally says like they fucked up in 1,000 Plateaus with how they think about fascism. Anyway, now we're getting off point. But I'll just say that I am looking forward to actually teaching some D&G. And, and of course, we got to talk about Marx, and we got to talk about Marxist theory of capital a little bit. Because, Land does. He starts off like with Marx as his primary referent when it comes to capital. So, but no, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And look, like if you decide to take the course, just know, like I've told Dave this, there's not even like, if anybody wants to take the course and just listen to the lectures, you don't even have to do weekly readings. I'm going to offer some weekly readings for anybody who just really wants to dive into this, but I'm also shaping the lectures to just stand on their own, speak for themselves, and be fully intelligible to somebody who hasn't done the readings. So that's that. All right, bye.